Now we're going to go into your next steps as a CSU transfer student and the things that you need to be aware of and consider as you make the decision to apply to a CSU. All right, so CSUs typically only admit upper division transfer students. So what that means is they are looking for students who have 60 or more transferable units. There are some schools that will admit lower division transfer students, so students that have less than 60 units, but those are typically schools that are not impacted. So it's not going to be Cal Poly San Luis or San Diego State. It'll be the smaller schools that have more room. And Sonoma State is one of those. However, in order to be a lower division transfer student, you had to qualify out of high school, meaning at this point in time, you still need to have an SAT or ACT score. And so a lot of our students that come to the community college decided not to take the SAT or ACT because it's not needed to get into a community college, nor is it needed as a transfer student. You do not need to have those scores. You don't even have to report them. So you can definitely research that to see if you would qualify as a lower division transfer student. But for the majority of the times, you do need to be that upper division transfer student with those 60 transferable units. So if you are a fall transfer student, you are applying almost 1 year prior to transfer. So your application period is October 1st to November 30th. And it's important to pay attention to that November 30th deadline. When is that? So this last year, November 30th was the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So obviously I was not sitting at my desk, available to assist students. And so it's important that, you start it early on so you can get all of your questions answered. You're not feeling that pressure. Many times the system starts to run a lot slower the closer we get to the 30th. For example, last year I had a student she was a reentry student. She had attended like 3 or 4 different community colleges. She had to enter all of her coursework and the system kept crashing on her. It was very slow. So I recommended she get up early in the morning and input that information. And so she did that and was able to get through. But it's one application no matter who you are as a student. So it's the same application for freshmen, for transfer, for graduate degree, for credential programs, for nursing. And so there's a lot of people who are getting into the system at one time trying to finish up their application. If you're a spring transfer student, the application period is October 1st to the 31st. Now, the most important thing in this sentence is if accepting. And so not every campus is open for spring transfer students. What they do is they look at their fall admission cycle, who came in, how many students did they get, and then they decide, well, are we open for spring? Do we have enough room to bring in more students and they're going to get their classes? There have been certain campuses that have not been open for spring for many years, and those are those really highly impacted campuses. So again, more of the smaller schools tend to be open in the spring, and so you just have to go onto the website to see if they're open. I'm not going to go on because right now it is not showing a spring term, and so it's just not useful. But as we get closer here to August, it will open up, and maybe by the time we do the application lecture, that will be open and I can show it to you. When you apply to the CSU, there's no essay required, so you don't have to worry about writing an essay. However, if within the application you decide to apply for EOP, then you would need to answer, they have 7 questions that you answer, and those are in a short essay format, so not a full-blown essay. Currently, you report all college classes with the grades that you earned within the application. So again, if you're a reentry student and you have attended multiple schools, you've been, in and out of college, you're going to have a lot to input into that application. And so you want to take that into consideration as you're filling out the application. And then an impacted school or major may have a supplemental application. So you want to pay attention to that. And a lot of times it's not something that they tell you. So you need to do that research by looking on their page, reaching out to them, asking if there'll be some type of supplemental. Typically they email it to you, but sometimes they don't. It's a way to weed out some students. So the cost of attending a CSU, it's an important piece of the application or the research in colleges is having the conversation with your family. If you're still a traditional age student and you're expecting some assistance from your family, you need to find out what assistance they can provide. And I know that can be somewhat of an uncomfortable conversation, but it is important. And you may have this idea that your family has more money to support you in college than they do. And so you need to learn sooner or later what the reality is. Maybe they have more to give you. Typically, that's not the case. But so the cost of attendance for a CSU really depends on where you live. And if you're living at home or with a relative, they say it's 18 to 20,000. If you're living on or off campus, it's 25 to 30,000. The tuition is different at a four-year university than it is at a community college. So for a CSU, the tuition for the year is $5,742 if you're enrolled in 6 units or more. And so it's a little bit different than the community college where it's a per unit fee. And so with the CSU, that would be your tuition. And then they have fees that go and are attached onto that. So here is the fee schedule. I'm going to click here and I'll put this link in our page. So you can see here, we're undergraduate and we're 6.1 units or more. So for the year, $5,742. And then if we go back to the PowerPoint here, and we look at fees by campus, here we go. So you can see what the fees really are. So the tuition and fees are a lot higher than that $5,742. So let's look at Sonoma State here, $7,880. It's one of the higher prices here for the tuition and fees. So what the fees are can be like they built a new rec building and so they've attached some fees to that. And so that just, can vary. But here for housing, food and housing at Sonoma State, they're saying $6,096. So you can, that's going to vary by student and your own particular situation. But you can take a look at these links. I'll put them in our page for you to play around with. The last thing is taking a tour. And I know, at this point in time, taking a tour is not possible in many, many cases. But visiting a campus is a really important part of the process. So when campuses open back up and you have the availability to take a tour, I highly, highly recommend it. Set up a tour through the outreach office. You want to ask if you can sit in a class, if that's a possibility. Speak with the department for your major, talk with other students. A lot of times there's special events, especially in the spring. So for example, Fresno State has dog days because they're the Bulldogs. And so they have an event typically in April that it's like an open house and they have a lot going on. My other recommendation is that you try to go during the week and not on a weekend. You want to see what the campus is like when students are there, and there's not a whole lot of students there on the weekend. We do tours in the transfer center. Of course, they're on hiatus for the fall semester, but you can see maybe in the spring we'll be able to take a tour, and so you can look on our website for any field trips that we're doing. And then you will be doing a virtual tour for the class, so you'll be able to go and do that for the assignment, which is another great option for just getting a feel for what the campus looks like and who their students are, what types of things they offer. But again, really stepping on a campus makes a big difference. When I was a transfer student, I applied from Merced College to San Francisco State, Cal Poly, San Luis, and Sac State. And when I got to San Francisco State, I stepped out of the car and I knew that it was not the right place for me. I just knew it. I could tell. And so sometimes you just get that feeling. However, I went to San Francisco State for grad school and it was fabulous. So that was a different point in my life. And so that feeling that you get when you're on campus, that's a really important part. And you don't want to ignore it if you're feeling that it's not a good fit. All right, so that virtual tour assignment will give you the opportunity to dig a little bit deeper into campuses.